Hey, what's up, my friends, and welcome to another empowering episode of Soul Podcasting, where I offer podcasting advice, strategies, and support for heart and soul aligned entrepreneurs who want to share their message with purpose, make an impact, and grow their network. Welcome to the show. I'm Demetria, and you are listening to episode 20. So this podcast is sponsored by Faith Media and Impact Podcast Coach, which is a service that supports women podcasters to boldly share their voices and their powerful messages through the medium of podcasting. And you can find out more about our podcast coaching services and our courses and download your free Launch Confidently podcasting checklist by visiting impactpodcastcoach.com. So today we have an exciting topic to dive into. This episode is just a little bit different since I am narrowing this week's focus on all the women podcasters or soon to be podcasters who are listening. The name of this show is Women Resonate and Rise, Owning Your Own Narrative Through Podcasting. And men, this is not to exclude you wonderful men listening today, but just to encourage the women who throughout the centuries have worked so hard to make our voices heard. So today we're talking about why sharing your story through podcasting is a game changer for women podcasters and speakers. So I would love for you to grab your favorite mug of tea, get really cozy, and we're going to get started with this show. Before I jump into the actual content, I want to share with you very briefly that if you are interested as a woman of faith in joining the Christian Women Podcasters Network, I would love for you to hop on over to impactpodcastcoach.com, fill out that form. I will leave the direct link to that form on the show notes of this episode. I would love for you to join our directory. This is going to be a directory where you will be supported and encouraged and uplifted as a podcaster of faith, if that is you. So I would love to have you join me, and all you have to do is fill out the form and we can figure out how to get you listed on the directory as well as promoted here on the shows. So do you have your favorite mug of tea yet? Your coffee, your favorite beverage, and are you ready to get started? I hope so. So, my friends, my sisters, storytelling is in our DNA, and we have been passing down stories from generation to generation. So using our words to inspire, to uplift, and motivate is something that is intricately woven throughout the fabric of our DNA. But you know what? In this digital age, we have a new platform to amplify our voices. And this platform is podcasting. Now, it's not extremely new. For those of you who know a little bit about my background story, I've been podcasting since 2005. So it has been around a while, and podcasting has been a thing since the mid 2000s. And that's when I got started with it. If you want to find out more about my story and how I got started with podcasting, you can find that story in detail at Her Business Elevated. I'm going to share more about that particular website with you as well throughout the show, but that's my other podcast. And I have an about page there that gives you more detail about how I really got into podcasting and where my heart was with helping women entrepreneurs since the early and mid 2000s. So you can find that at herbusinesselevated.com. Click on the About tab and it tells you my entire story with getting into podcasting and digital marketing. Again, I'll leave a link to that in case you're curious about my background. And I'm just really passionate about this because I know that this is such a powerful medium. And so some of you might be wondering, well, why should I even bother sharing my story through podcasting? Well, let me tell you why I think it's important and how it can benefit you and your message in your life. And the first benefit for you is your ability to make an authentic connection with your audience. So when you share your story through podcasting, you create this authentic connection with the people who are listening to you. So people crave that realness, right? And they want to hear stories that they can relate to. So by speaking your truth, you create a space, a safe space for other people to share their experiences also. And that fosters a sense of community and belonging. So I share more about that being authentic over on episode number 7. If you want to go through my archives and look back at episode 7, when I share about how I define the idea of soul podcasting. So you can listen to that episode while also hearing about my idea of authenticity and how that connects into this overall picture of what podcasting is. But I also share a lot about authenticity on my other podcasts, which I told you I would tell you more about on this show. And that show is called the Her Business Elevated Podcast. I'd love for you to listen to that as well if you happen to be a woman of faith that's curious about growing your business as a woman of faith. So that's a podcast where I uplift women entrepreneurs according to the Bible and scripture. On that show, I'm going to recommend for you episode 25, where Josephie Jackson, who is the CEO of Black Card Books, shares her authenticity story. She shares how she began with her desire to be an author as a child and how God created different opportunities in her life to become who she is today. But it all connects together through this idea of being authentic with herself, being real and true to herself, and authentic with her audiences. So you can hear more about that on episode 25 of herbusinesselevated.com. Also, episode 19 of that same show is where I share about how to stay authentic with your audience, with your listeners. So again, herbusinesselevated.com if you want more information about faith-based entrepreneurship. And of course, I'm going to leave links for you on today's show notes so that you'll have access to that directly. But that is my first thing, is just to make sure that you are authentic with your audience. When you have that connection, that is one of the main reasons that you'll want to create a show, is to create that connection with your listeners. And the second is the fact that representation matters. Okay, representation matters. It matters now more than it ever has. And as women, and many of us who are in this space right now, and some of you are also minority women, our stories have often been overlooked or misrepresented in mainstream media. But what podcasting does for us, it allows us to take control of our narratives and present ourselves authentically. So by sharing your story, you become a role model for other women and women of color, and then you inspire them to own their own stories and voices. And if you're not a woman of color and you are a woman listening to this, again, you are a role model for those listening to you. So you are inspiring others to use their voices in a powerful way. So representation as minorities, either women or women of color, is a huge part, I think, of what podcasting allows us to do, is to give us the platform to share our voices. And thirdly, you're going to be able to amplify your message, because podcasting provides a powerful platform to amplify your message. It allows you to reach a global audience and share your knowledge and your wisdom and your experiences. Now, when I first started podcasting in 2005, I was shocked at the countries that I was able to reach through that podcast. When I looked at my statistics and I saw the downloads and who was downloading from where, the list of countries that showed up in my statistics was shocking to me, because in that day and time, I didn't realize how effective a podcast could actually be and how impactful my voice and my message could be through a podcast. So it was definitely a confidence builder, and it definitely infused me to keep going when I saw I had downloads in different countries. And so recently I was looking at my homeschool podcast and was really blown away by the fact that there are listeners in countries where I didn't even realize that homeschooling is actually a thing. But there are listeners in Kenya and listeners all over Europe, specifically in the UK, and listeners in Spain. I have a few that have trickled in through India, which is really surprising for me, but all over the place, and not just within the United States where I live, but all over the world. And so you never really know the kind of impact you have until you take a look at your statistics and see who's playing your podcast, who's downloading them, how many downloads are you getting from these different countries and states, right? So this helps you to see just how impactful and how global your reach is with your podcast. Whether you're discussing personal growth or entrepreneurship or social justice or any other topic that's close to your heart, podcasting gives you the opportunity to spark change and to inspire action. So you really do have a significant impact on the hearts and the ears of your listeners. What are you excited about that pulls in your heart and makes you want to make a change in your world? Think about that question. And that's the kind of passion you want to bring to the table when you think of amplifying your message. Fourthly, building a legacy. So when you share your story through podcasting, you're not just speaking for yourself, you're leaving a legacy for future generations. So your voice becomes a time capsule. It preserves your experiences, your thoughts, and your insights for years to come. It's not just for today, but for a long time after you've spoken those words. So when I go back and I listen to some of the podcast episodes that I've recorded 10 years ago, I realize that it's still making an impact on people today because they're still downloading things that I recorded over 10 years ago. That means a lot to me because it helps me to see that none of my work is in vain. So your podcast becomes a source of inspiration and empowerment for women who are yet to come, and you get to show them that their stories matter and their stories can make a difference. So whether your podcast is for women or men, whatever gender, it doesn't really matter who your podcast is for. But specifically today, I'm talking directly to women, and I'm telling you that you have a voice that matters and that a podcast can build a very powerful legacy for you for the years to come. So I just want to encourage you that if this is something that you really want to do it. Like, do it with all of your heart and jump on it, because this is something that if it's burning in your heart and it's something that you feel that you really want to get started doing, I would love for you to get started doing that, because I know how impactful it's been for me. I know how helpful it has been in my life, not only to help other people, but as I share, sometimes I myself am getting healed from my own sharing of my podcast. Sometimes as we share our stories, we end up finding that personal healing through sharing with other people what we ourselves are discovering in the moment, because nobody's arrived at the point of perfection, right? We are all on a journey of healing and growth. And so as we share our stories and we're authentic and we show up just as we are, we can sort of meet our healing halfway by being available, by being a willing vessel to allow ourselves to share our truth with other people. And in doing so, we can find not only are we helping other people to get through their situations that may be pretty tough in life, but as we're helping them to solve their problems, we are also finding ourselves solving our own problems. So it's kind of a win-win situation, I think. And then lastly, I just wanted to share that monetizing your passion is a big key of podcasting. So let's be real, sis. Let's be real. We all deserve to be financially rewarded for our hard work and our talent. Podcasting offers you monetization opportunities through sponsorships, through ads, through merchandise, anything that you're selling, any products or services. And even if you have exclusive content for loyal listeners, like on Patreon, or if you want to use something like buymeacoffee.com, which is what I use, find ways to monetize your podcast, because there's a scripture in the Bible that I love. And it's from 1 Timothy 5:18, and it says, "The laborer is worthy of his reward." And I firmly believe that if you are putting forth the effort and the time and energy to devote yourself to a work, especially if it's something that you're not planning to do just for free and you would love to make some money with it, because I know some people actually do things out of the goodness of their heart, and it is simply a ministry for them. But for those of us who also want to have a little income from what we're doing, or maybe a lot of income from what we're doing, then again, I love 1 Timothy 5:18 because it says the laborer is worthy of his reward. So do not be ashamed or afraid to step up and say, hey, I would like to figure out how to monetize this, how to bring some income in from this service that I'm offering for my listeners every week or every other week. So it's a lot of work to podcast. It is labor, and you should definitely be rewarded for your labors. So if you are interested in monetization, these are the strategies that can help you to monetize your podcast. Everything that I've just listed with sponsorships, ads, products and services, and crowdfunding. So by sharing your story and growing your podcast, you can also open doors to collaborations, to partnerships, and opportunities that can turn your passion into a sustainable income stream. So this is possible. It is not an overnight process, and it doesn't typically happen overnight unless you happen to already have a really huge cult following If you're already kind of famous and have, a large following, then this could pretty much be an overnight thing for you. But for those of us who just don't quite have that type of fame, and you're building your podcast from the ground up and building your audience from the ground up, then this is something that will take a little time, but hang in there. It's going to be okay. You can do it. So there you have it, my friends. Sharing your story through podcasting is not only important, but also beneficial in so many ways. It's a chance to connect, to represent. You will amplify. You're going to build that legacy and monetize your passion. So don't let your story go untold. I want you to grab that microphone, hit record, and let your voice be heard. And before I say my goodbye to you, I want you to know that I do have something free for you. It's my podcasting birthday month. I would love to offer you two things. First of all, I have a huge discount for you because I'm celebrating not only my birthday this month and my daughter's birthday, but my podcasting birthday month. And this month makes my 18th year podcasting, and my daughter turned 21. So if you type in birthday 21 as a coupon code, you're going to get 50% off of coaching for the rest of the month of June and perhaps a little bit into July, as I probably will extend this sale. And what that means for you is that if you need help, okay, if you are someone who has been thinking about creating this podcast, or you've been wanting to get it off the ground and you just have been tinkering around with the idea of it, but haven't quite gotten things rolling yet, and you just need a little support. You need someone to talk to, you have some questions to ask, and you just want to straighten some things out in your mind before you really take off. Or you could be someone who already is podcasting, but just has a few questions about what you're doing. You want to make sure that your processes are working well for you, and you just maybe need some things kind of cleared up for you. So whether that is you need some interviewing tips, or you need some software training, like how to edit in Audacity or in Audition, or you need some help with monetizing your podcast, you just need a few suggestions. You need to learn how to create content for your podcast, schedule out your content, or even with your branding and setup advice. Any of these things that I can help you with, I would love to sit with you on a Zoom call. We'll hop on a call together and we'll go through any of your questions. For 45 minutes, you'll have with me 50% off of that coaching price, which is originally $250. And so you're going to get that half off, and you just have to type in the code birthday21 and you're good to go. So I invite you to do that. I also have a free podcasting checklist for you. This is a 24-page workbook and guide that takes you through 4 steps of planning, producing, launching, and growing your podcast. And it's a checklist. There's a planner. There are questions to help you through the launch of your podcast. And it will basically take you through everything, including many of the tools that you're going to need to start your podcast on a budget. So if this is something that you feel like you need to get started, I invite you to download this for absolutely free. The link is in my show notes. You can also find that link on impactpodcastcoach.com. And the last thing I want to share with you is that if you are interested in learning more about my background and how I got into podcasts, my enthusiasm for it, why I got started, my whole story, my journey from 2005 until now, I do have my background story available for you. I just wrote up a whole page about it, and it's over on my other website at Her Business Elevated, but I'd love for you to hop over there as well. So I'm going to leave a link to that. It includes a newspaper clipping, an article of my local news station back in 2006 that ran this story about global news and podcasting, and they happened to interview me about it. And I'd love to share that with you, along with my entire story of how I got from where I was back then to where I am now and why I'm passionate about it. So I'm leaving that page link in the show notes as well at herbusinesselevated.com/about. And these are 3 things that I want you to know are available to you, especially the free download and the 50% off for coaching. So I'd love to talk with you. Again, I'm very passionate about podcasting. So if this is something that you definitely want to start very soon, then you know who to reach, because I love helping entrepreneurs start and grow your podcast. Okay, so that's a wrap for today's episode of Soul Podcasting, and I hope you're feeling inspired and ready to embark on your podcasting journey. And remember, your story is powerful and your voice matters. So if you have any questions or want to share your podcasting experiences, you can feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Demetria Zinga, all lowercase. And until next time, my friends, keep shining and happy podcasting.